Hello everybody, my name is Curtis and this is my YouTube channel Off the Left Eye, and I wanted to tell you about something I've been really struggling with for the past 5 months, 6 months now. Man, it's been a rough go since April. I remember it started in April. I want to talk about mental health. I've been struggling with some mental health things, which is not new for me. You can look back on this channel to 2020. I had another video about how I was struggling with this. Well, it happened again. And I want to, in this video, I want to talk about evil spirits and how I think evil spirits or demons are linked to mental health. And I know that there's gonna be a lot of people are just gonna say, no, don't do that, man. Don't bring that weird stuff into it. So I want to say, oh man, I am not trying to discount at all what science and technology are doing for the treatment of mental health. I'm not trying to say that what I'm gonna talk about here should replace any of that. That stuff works, and you're gonna hear, I've leaned on it like crazy over the course of this. I'm just saying that there is a missing piece that I think can be really helpful to people who are struggling with anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive, which are the three things that I've been dealing with. That even I think everything in mental health is kind of trying to point in that direction. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. All I'm gonna do is give you what's been happening to me, and hopefully you can get something useful out of it. Because you know what, man, a lot of people are struggling with stuff in the mind. Why did I end up doing a channel like this, where I'm talking nonstop about spiritual stuff, and particularly about Emanuel Swedenborg and the gigantic knowledge dump that he did on the human race, because, or I guess I could say, the giant knowledge download that he did on the human race. Well, it was mental health stuff that got me into it. I was, when I was 18 or 19, really started hitting this hard period of anxiety and depression, and then I had I've had like 4 or 5 major episodes of this throughout my life, and it was in there that I first started to think about the existence of a spiritual world. Because I really started taking that idea seriously. And the thing that makes it undeniable for me, or close to undeniable, is the experience of having a human mind. If you have ever been inside of a mind that is, I would say, compromised, meaning you have anything that people would classify as mental illness. So anxiety is like you're just way more nervous than you need to be about stuff. Depression is you look for bad outcomes, you have fears and things. Obsessions and compulsions, or OCD, it's like you have these unwanted pounding thoughts and fears that can only be relieved by doing certain things. If you're in that and you feel like your mind is just sitting there and attacking you, and it's doing it, it knows what it's doing. Like it's goal-directed, and it's clever, and it's devious, and it knows your buttons and how to push them, and it just keeps going and keeps going. If you have to get your tools and all that and try to outsmart it. And if you've ever experienced that, just in this solo experience of I'm a person, and okay, there's all these theories about what really happens in life and how does the universe work, but here I am, and I'm interacting with my consciousness, and I don't know what's going on here. Why is it like that? That was for me when Swedenborg's explanation of consciousness, particularly the idea that we are influenced by what he calls the spiritual world, and what you can helpfully sort into heaven and hell. That heaven is talking to your mind, hell is talking to your mind. That was very pivotal moment in my life, because suddenly I had a label for all of this negative stuff in my mind. Oh, that's hell. That's coming from hell. Which I know sounds really intense. It might sound scary. It might sound unscientific. But I think it's just another way to say, or sort of a meta explanation for things that are already, everybody's observing them in the way that you treat mental health stuff. I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what my last couple months have been like, so you understand why I'm so interested in all this. I've been worried I'm going to get cancer and die. I've been consumed by that worry. And it started with, I had a tumor under my thumbnail. And I didn't know it was that. I just thought it was some weird little thing. And then I went to the doctor, and they were like, I don't know, go to the dermatologist. And I went to the dermatologist, and I was like, it's probably nothing. And then she was like, oh, this, some cancers do that. And I was, what? And like I broke. Because I've got a family history. There's some cancer in my dad's side of the family. I don't luckily have the gene mutation that was causing those problems, but it's present for me. Like I know, people can die from cancer. And so I was like, what? I can't be a kind of person who could ever have that. So I spent these like agonizing days before they could get it tested. And then I went and saw this other specialist, and because they needed to send me there, and he was like, oh, it's probably not. It's probably not. It's probably these other things. And I was like, oh, phew. But of course, I was getting more and more anxious. I remember just staring at my thumb, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know that this is it. And like I had these sort of, not voices in my head, like you can really hear them, but just this impression and this knowing, like, this is going to turn out to be cancer. This is you're in a lot of trouble here. And you might think I'm here on this channel talking about life after death all the time, and God and afterlife, and how the afterlife is great. And you might be like, I don't get it. Why would you be so afraid of getting cancer and dying? Isn't that like mean you don't really believe in everything that you're saying? Or that, like, how do you square that? Like what you are worried about this? So let me give you, in my mind, I'm who knows? Like if I'm actually ever, I was going to say if I'm actually ever faced with death, someday I will be, like everybody is. If and when I'm actually faced with, I might die, we'll see if I'm scared or not. In my mind, I sort of think not. I do actually have a pretty strong conviction about the consciousness survives death. And that's, sure, I get it from Swedenborg, but I also get it from all the near-death experiences and how believable they are, but also just people I know. I know a bunch of people who have had these spiritual experiences, that there's something more. So I don't really, that's not one I struggle with a lot. I kind of feel like, yeah, there's an afterlife and the people I know are in there. However, I've got a family. And I had a tragic loss when I was young. When I was 6, my sister died. And so I know what it's like to live with grief for a long time. And the impact on mental health that has, and the challenges and the pain. And my life is great. Obviously, one great part of it is this channel, and that you've all been so cool about talking about these things, and so awesome to spend this time with. But also, like, everyone knows life is painful, and I've certainly had these sort of episodes of painful stuff, and I think is like, I don't want to cause that for my family. I don't want to be the source of that grief. I don't want my daughter to have a lifetime of missing me and the pain of that. So that freaks me out. That scares me. And that's where the fear got me. That's where it was just like, so, okay, I kind of left you hanging here, didn't I? It wasn't cancer. The thumbnail wasn't cancer. It was this other thing that's benign, can't kill you. And I remember when I got that news, I was just like, floating for a day. I just felt a couple days. I was like, man, I just feel like I'm lighter than air. My life is stretching out before me. Now, granted, this is not the first time I've been scared I was going to die from medical stuff. You can go back and check the other video for that. But I was like, this is so great. But then, I had to go to Florida and give a speech. And I remember in the day before the speech, I looked and I noticed something else on another fingernail. And I was like, oh no, it's happening again. And unfortunately, I had done some Googling. Don't Google your health, people. Don't do it. It does not make anything better. It makes everything worse. Never do it. But through Googling, I'd seen this article that said, if you get multiple kinds of the thing that I have, that might be a sign you have this ultra rare genetic condition that would make you more likely to get cancers. So suddenly I was back into like, oh no, what if this? And that, if you haven't ever had health anxiety, you may not understand, but it absolutely consumed my life. Like I was just, I was able to still make these videos and stuff. You probably didn't notice. I remember though, a couple of videos that are on this channel, like when I was filming them, I was really, I was down in the dumps. I was down in the depths. But it just and then I started like, and this is like what OCD is. It's like you get this fear and it's like, I would have to check my fingernails really closely. Like, oh, is another one growing? Is another one growing? Is that little, and every little thing, every little bump or blemish or chip or spot, I was like, oh no, that's one starting. That's one just starting. I just spent every day in terror about it. And just over and over, just constantly, my brain is locked in, which stay tuned on Brain Lock. That's the name of a book that was really helpful to me. My brain is locked in on like this, you are definitely, a number of times I just resigned myself to, all right, I have this condition. And the funny thing is like, even if I had the condition, it's not like a guarantee that you're gonna die soon, but that's what it felt like. This is a symptom of obsessive compulsive health anxiety. It's like impending doom. So I had impending doom, just like if one thing goes wrong in this chain, like if I get enough, that means I definitely have this syndrome. And then if I have this syndrome, I'm definitely gonna get cancer soon, and I'm definitely gonna die and cause all this pain for everyone and all this kind of stuff. So just getting hammered and hammered and hammered by that all day, every day. It was the worst. I feel like it was the worst period of my life. I don't know. You never know. If I went back to other period, but it was so bad. It was so painful, and it was so, oh man, I was so under siege. Something I love is in the book. There's a book called Brain Lock, which earlier on in my obsessive compulsive journey, health anxiety journey, that book was super helpful to me. It was recommended to me by a therapist that I started seeing. And obsession in obsessive compulsive disorder, you know what that means? It means besieging, like the Greek word or whatever the root of it is. It's like a besieging thought. So you think of something that is besieging you. This is like, you're gonna die. And in all these different ways, it's just like sitting there. And then the compulsion is just, what do you do to try to relieve that feeling? What do you do to try to relieve that feeling? So I was obsessed, and I could barely function. Sometimes hard to get out of bed, constant fight or flight, because it was even overblowing like what that would be. Like, yes, people get terrible medical diagnoses, but it happens, but people deal with it. And so I didn't even have one, and I was living like worse than if I had actually been facing. So what is going on there, man? What's going on there? Well, if you've been in such an extreme internal mental situation, you look for answers, and they got to be satisfying answers. In almost every mental health treatment system, they'll tell you, you got to get some space apart from your thoughts. You got to get some space apart from your thoughts. So you have to, this is not me, I'm gonna push it out. So for example, in the book Brain Lock, there's this breakthrough moment this woman has that they repeat a lot, which is, it's not me, it's my OCD. It's not me, it's my OCD. And there's this 4-step method in Brain Lock, which is scientifically proven by scientists at UCLA to reduce the lighting up of a certain part of your brain that makes you stuck in this thing. And part of it is you relabel, which means when you get this, when you're sitting there and you're pulling weeds in your garden, and it's like, you're gonna get this thing, which is gonna lead you to catastrophic death soon. You say, oh, that is instead of saying I'm thinking that, you say, I'm having an obsession that. So you call it something that's not you. And then you revalue it, which is you're supposed to say, why am I having that obsession? Well, it's because of a medical condition. This is a symptom of a medical condition that I have, which is obsessive compulsive. So it's all about putting it at arm's length from you. Same thing with cognitive behavioral therapy, which I have loved. I've got, seeing a specialist because that's how you're supposed to treat it. And there's so many things that are great in there. But what cognitive behavioral therapy will do is to when you have a thought like that comes in, challenge it. Like, here's some challenging questions. One is, do you know that that's true? Do you, are there thinking errors in it? Like, are you catastrophizing? Are you fortune telling in it? Are you looking at all or nothing? Are you looking at mental filter? Meaning, like, do you only look at the bad things? Are you jumping to conclusions? There's so many thinking errors, and you're trying to pick it apart to say arm's length. And there's even diffusion, it's called, which is instead of saying, I'm going to die, you say, I notice I'm having a thought that I'm going to die. Okay? Everything, internal family systems therapy, which is, hey, that's a part of me that's wrapped up in that, but I'm not going to be wrapped up in that. Everything is about pushing it out. So Emanuel Swedenborg, who's some guy I never met, curly wig, lived in the 1700s, late 1600s, 1700s, whatever. Before there was such a thing as psychology, he has this spiritual awakening, and he says, whoa, guys, the mind is not what we think it is. The mind is not what we think it is. Actually, there is a very direct, specific influence on you, not just sometimes, not just if you have it, all the time, from the people in the spiritual world, the people that have died and are there. Yeah. And sure, there's like a weirdness factor there. However, like when you've experienced something in your mind and then you see something that really closely corroborates it, let alone something across hundreds of years, you're like, wait, what? Especially if it gives you an explanation for what. So here I am, 2025, having this experience of my mind is locking me into this thing and trying to get me to continually experience this like deathly fear of everything. Here's what Swedenborg in 17 whatever, a couple different places here, talks about when he says the influence of hell on the human mind. So hell is just, to Swedenborg, in case you're new, heaven and hell are states of mind. Heaven is the state of mind where you love people and you want to do good. You want to do good to them. You want them to be happy. Hell is a state of mind where you want to harm people and you want to exploit them. You care only about yourself and you use people as... So obviously that's active in the world. You have heaven and hell come in, like people that are in a state of heaven do nice things for you. People that are in a state of hell, they try to hurt you in various ways, through scams, they'll rob you, they'll make fun of you. Like it's all kinds of, right? People in the afterlife are the people from this world. They're still there. And now, though, they're like, your consciousness is connected to them. Because just like here, the physical is connected. So what you eat, what you breathe, the people you're around affects, you physically. There, it's like those people are trying to access you and influence you for better or worse. So Swedenborg would talk about when he would be attacked by evil spirits. And he says that before he had the spiritual awakening, he would have just thought like, oh, this is just anxiety. But he was just seeing what's the cause behind it. He talks about evil spirits and what they generally do when they stick you into this state of misery. He'll say he goes on about a bunch of stuff that they do to him and the particulars of how it works. He says, or else they torture us with anxiety. Another device they use is to train our thoughts on a single issue with no let-up. Again, there's no diagnosis of obsessive compulsive. Even in the 60s, there wasn't the idea of obsessive compulsive. But that is exactly, single issue, no let-up. And push on you and push on you and push on you so that you get so wrapped up in this thing you can't get out. This is from another place in Swedenborg, talking about evil spirits. He says, they activate the evils and falsities residing with the person, and they also confine him to these, increasing them to the point where he reaches despair. There's an entry in his Journal of Spiritual Experiences, which is too long to read here. We did a whole episode on it, but it's just like, this is obsessive compulsive. This is anxiety. This is it. But he didn't have a textbook to go and say, all right, I'm going to reverse engineer that. He's just saying, this is just what spirits do, by the way. I've observed this in myself. This is how the spiritual world locks you in. He says, there are various objects of thought in which, while a man is held, or his reflection is kept fixed upon them by spirits, they occasion much disturbance, as experience abundantly teaches respecting those things which are at present his own, or which may happen hereafter. So that's the English translation. I think his journal was in Swedish, saying, look, when you reflect on what's going on with you or what might happen, there's a reason why, and maybe I think with some people more than others who have, some whatever conditions it is that lead to this mental illness, spiritual world, spirits in there lock you in on this stuff. He says, whenever I was held for some time in this kind of reflection, like this ruminating on things, spirits would immediately throw in inconvenient, troublesome, and evil suggestions, together with confirmations and cupidities. I don't see spirits, I don't hear spirits, but absolutely that's the thoughts and the messages that I get. And he says, hence arises the melancholy, which that's what they would call it back then, of many persons, hence debilitated minds, hence the deliriums of many men, hence too insanities and fantasies. Like that's the component. And Swedenborg is not somebody who's saying the brain doesn't do anything. He was an anatomist. He loved the brain. he was studying the brain, and he makes the point elsewhere. Like, if you injure the substances in your brain, you'll go out of your mind. Like, he's not trying to say there's nothing physical going on. He's just saying that through the mechanism of the brain, there's another layer to it. There's another layer for what's going on. I just want to add here, he says, therefore the Lord alone makes provision that man may not come into such insanities and thence into innumerable fantasies. And in order to prevent this, he commands that we shall have no care for the morrow. For this is what is signified by having care for the morrow. Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow. Why is God telling you don't worry about tomorrow? Because the more you do it, it makes you vulnerable to this stuff. And the truth is that you're being taken care of by divine providence. But the less you trust that, the more vulnerable, not for everyone, but the more vulnerable you become to stuff like this. So he's putting a why to the pain we experience inside. Why is it like that? Well, because it's coming from malicious intent. It's a targeted, intentional attack on you. That is the way a lot of other negative stuff works. Not everything. Suffering from a natural disaster, right, or non-pathogenic diseases. But usually there's something that's coming at you, that's attacking you. So, for example, the example I always love to use is scams, like phone scams. Somebody calls you and you don't answer it because if you pick up, they're trying to trick you. Or the phishing email that seems to know who you are and look credible and know something, but they're trying to get you to log in and they're going to steal your information. The reason those exist is because somebody's trying to exploit you. Somebody's trying to get something out of you, right? And understanding that somebody's trying to get something out of you gives you the will that you need to resist it, to not believe it, to be skeptical of it, to push it away. Same thing with, obviously all crimes that get committed against you, somebody's doing that. But even, predatory loans, the people that are mean to you online. Like, it's most things, if systemic, like rich corporations coming and taking the water out of the ground, and then the nearby village can't drink, and companies, I'm picking on you here, but I've just seen so many documentaries about this, dumping their waste products into a river that then, hurts you and your kids. Like, it comes from somewhere, and when you understand that, even if you're not say like, oh, they're evil, but you understand where it starts. And then you can get some leverage against it. What Swedenborg is doing is giving you that leverage. Oh, it's from hell. Okay, yes. And I would argue, anybody involved in these disciplines and these books I'm talking about on the mental health side would probably be like, don't speak, well, they definitely be like, don't speak for us. Don't get us mixed up in this stuff. They're not. But it seems to me like they're kind of trying to point toward there's got to be an existence out there. I mean, in the Brain Lock book I was talking about, he calls OCD the devil. It's a secular book, but he'll say it's like a devil. They'll use that language and they'll say OCD is a disease, a very interesting disease. And in CBT, they'll like, OCD is very tricky. It adapts. Like everybody knows like what is going on with this thing. What is going on with this thing? And yes, that there's something in the brain. Yes, you can see it on brain scans, but that's not a satisfying explanation for the intelligence and the goal-directed nature of it and the foreign nature of it. Why would your own brain want to kill you, destroy your happiness? It's a brain. It's your brain. It can shut off if it doesn't want you anymore. Like it could just stop working. You would die right away. I think that it gives you the explanation of, okay, up the chain, right? It's just like anything else you got to fight against. And all these books and things, you got to dig deep. You got to know that this is not you, that it's not true, and that it's not what it presents as. You got to go. To me, seeing the nature of hell, which again, was not Swedenborg's mission to insert spiritual stuff into mental health. There was no mental health care back then. There was no psychology. That was later that they developed that. But he just goes and describes the way that hell works, and it just happens to match up really well. The burning question, I think for me, is why does hell, let's say it's hell, let's say that's the thing, why does hell want us to be afraid? Why does it want to make us afraid? Is there an explanation that I understand the motive? Just like the scammer. Why does the scammer want your login? Why does the scammer want to know your password? Because they can steal money. Because they want your money. That makes sense. That makes sense. Why does hell want to make us afraid? So many people are dealing with anxiety. Oh man, everybody. And so many people turn to religion because they're struggling with fear and doubt and pain and all that. I get there's morality, there's like good versus evil, and you got to not do good or do evil, but there's this whole side of like, why fear? Why is hell trying to make us afraid? Again, I think there's a framework in Swedenborg for what the big picture is, what they're trying to get out of you. I just want to say, like, the role that fear plays in mental illness is totally central. This is from mentalhealth.org. Fear is a feature of nearly all clinical mental health problems and is a root cause of some of the most common ones. So let's say there is a hell. Let's say that hell is everybody out there who's trying to gratify themselves and harm everyone, and heaven is everyone who's wanting to help everyone. Why is hell trying to get us into the state that mental illness gets you into, which is miserable and incapacitated and in pain? One reason is that fear is pain, and the state of hell wants to cause pain, just as an end in itself. Swedenborg wrote, "The very delight of those who are in hell is to inflict evil on others." I think we would call that sadism here. "With some, for no other end than the sake of the delight." I just like to be mean. You're a bully, you're a narcissist, whatever you are, I just like being mean. Okay, I just like hurting you, especially if I have something against you. "With some, to the end that they may be reduced to slavery, and whom they desire to treat cruelly afterward." Which again, obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, depression, often, psychosis, it all wants to have the end effect of you totally enslaved by it and incapacitated by it. I'm incapacitated by trying to say incapacitated. So that's one. But I think there's a bigger game being played, which is that God, who is the exact opposite of that, who's love and freedom and truth, the purpose of reality, according to Swedenborg, again, the framing, you got to have the framing. I want to know what the purpose of everything is? Heaven from the human race. What that means is the point of life is God wants you, and I say that to everyone, to exist in a supremely happy, peaceful state. And you could say, how do you know what God wants? Well, just say, what does love want? When you really love someone, what do you want for them? You want them to have a great life and be happy. It doesn't mean, you never want them to ever struggle with anything, but you want them, if you love your kid, you want your kid to have a great life. If you love somebody, you want them to have a great life. That's what heaven is just a great life that you love. So hell, because the nature of evil is that it despises other people. You're jealous of them, or you don't like them. You don't want them to be happy. Hell is the opposite of that. Even if you don't realize that when you're being pushed along by the desires of hell. Hell is the opposite of that. So I think that hell is trying to make everybody afraid because that derails our ability to come into heaven. That is exactly against what God is trying to do. That is what's something that messes something up? That's like the rod in the gears of God's machine. Because the fear is the destroying of trust. You don't trust that you're going to be okay. And the religious way to say that you're going to be okay is that God is going to take care of you. That the only way to actually be free from unhappiness and actually be in peace is if you believe that God is taking care of you. The divine providence is like taking care of all the details, and you can relax knowing everything's going to turn out all right. That takes trust. Trust is a key component. This is why Jesus Christ is always like, have faith, have faith, have faith, have faith. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, because it's really important. It's not like a sidebar item. It's really important, and hell is trying to destroy that because that's the thing that will lead you to happiness. And actually, having the trust makes your life go better. This is from Swedenborg again. Yeah, I'm just reading you a bunch of Swedenborg. Oh, are you new to the channel? That's what this channel is. Because I think Swedenborg, there's plenty of other channels doing great stuff with other great truths. Swedenborg is the best way I think I can contribute. They know, this is talking about people who are in this state of trust, that for those who trust in the divine, all things advance toward a happy state to eternity, and that whatever befalls them in time is still conducive thereto. Be it known that the divine providence is universal, that is, in the things most minute, and that they who are in the stream of providence are all the time carried along toward everything that is happy, whatever may be the appearance of the means, and that those are in the stream of providence who put their trust in the divine and attribute all things to him. Trust changes your life. It changes your life. It makes it, not only does it relieve your anxiety, it makes it actually so God can more easily direct your life and put you on the path toward happiness. What is anxiety? What is fear? What is depression? What is obsessive compulsive? What is anything? What's all negativity is any fear-based negativity is, I don't trust that this is going to be okay. I don't trust that this is going to be okay. So to me, it's like makes total sense. Makes all the sense in the world. Hell is trying to get it so you don't trust that it's going to be okay. Or if you're going to say that religiously, which I like to do because I feel like, to me, that has the potency. You don't trust that God has got this. No, man, he's got a plan. This is all happening. This didn't just happen for no reason. This is all happening according to plan. You're going to be fine. There's a happy state forever that I'm trying to bring you into, and this is actually going to make it work. This is just trust me, and then I can lift this unhappiness off you. And so hell is pulling hard in the other direction because there's a misery that they want you to be in. Elsewhere in Secrets of Heaven, without such faith or trust in the Lord, no one can ever attain that peace, nor accordingly the bliss which joy brings, since that bliss resides within such peace. Full happiness, and you don't always realize this, especially until you hit some hard patch. You can be going along just fine, but you really can't have full happiness until you have the trust that everything's going to be okay. That everything's going to work out, that there's a plan, that you're not alone. God is taking care of you in all kinds of ways. That's it. So what would be more effective than destroying that concept in you? And that seems to be exactly what mental illness in all its forms is trying to do. So suddenly, makes total sense. Hey, you've been watching this video for a long time. Thank you. Appreciate it. What I want to do now is give you a couple more, I think, what are key pieces of the big picture and why Swedenborg's framework, again, gives the rest of the missing explanation of why the mind is like it is. There's this desire to know the future, or in anxiety, there's this concern about the future, where you have Jesus and like every other tradition saying, like, don't worry, be in the present. Jesus saying, don't worry about your life. I'm taking care of the sparrows, I'm taking care of the lilies, so you don't worry about it. But whereas hell, or if you want to say mental illness, they do the same thing. I think they're just manifestations of each other on different levels of there's physical and spiritual. The two are interacting all the time. It makes you anxious about the future. Sometimes about the past, but future. I was told by a professional, like the central lie of obsessive compulsive disorder is that you need to be certain about what's going to happen and that that's possible. And if you can just get certainty, then you'll be okay. That's actually, well, you might think, well, yeah, how could you be the happiest? Is if you knew what's going to happen in the future, and then you wouldn't be worried about. But actually, that is the opposite of the state that we're supposed to get into to be happy. Swedenborg wrote, "Worry about the future, reinforced by one's actions, seriously blunts and slows the inflow of spiritual life. They attribute what is actually the work of divine providence to themselves, and people who do this block the inflow, keeping a life of goodness and truth at arm's length." So you can try to get certainty. You can try to, health anxiety is such a good example of this. You can never know what's going to happen with your health. Never. You can never know, like, okay, I'm not trying to freak you out, but anybody, anytime can suddenly, something goes wrong and they get this terrible medical news. You can never be sure that you're not. I mean, it just is what it is. But even like, if you get one piece of bad news, this happened, you don't know what that's going to mean for the next step. You don't know what that's going to mean for the next, you're never going to know. The reality is you'll never know. I just saw there was some ad for some streaming show that was like the story of this woman who had cancer, and the doctor said you have like a month and a half or 3 months or something to live. But it didn't happen. Actually, she lived a long time after that. So you just never know. That's just how life is, especially with health stuff. You never know. You never know what's going to lead to what. You never know. The state we're supposed to get into is not where we know or where we can be sure we've prevented anything terrible from happening. It's where you trust that things are going to work out in the end. Like the only thing you can know is like it's going to be okay sometime. That God is in charge. Like you can try to get certain about how things are going to go, but it's impossible and it's not happiness. Which is hard for me to believe. I mean, with most things, not this one. Like this one hit me where I need to know there's certainty. Other things I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we'll just let it work out. But with this and like the mortality and like the grief thing and like, they got me. They know how to get me there. One last thing I want to say about the difference between how heaven affects your mind and how hell affects your mind. This is what I think it is based on reading Swedenborg extensively and then having my own mind for a long time, but then also these other modalities and things. Heaven is useful. Hell is useless. You want to know if something's from hell? It's useless. Again, in Brain Lock, the book, part of the 4 steps process is identifying that these obsessions, which are these fears about what's going to happen, they're not what they say they are, meaning they're not actually, and they don't help you. They don't make it any better. Obsessing about it, Googling things, trying to get that certainty, doing the compulsions that some people struggle with, like whatever it is, it doesn't help you. Worrying about that doesn't help you. And even as I looked, like just physiologically, when you're super worried about stuff, it doesn't help your immune system. It doesn't help outcomes. Like it does nothing. There's a limited amount of like, okay, you can be vigilant enough that you should go to the doctor sometimes. Don't avoid that. But all this other stuff actually makes it worse, can lead to worse outcomes. So it's useless. And in cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the thinking errors that they'll have when a thought comes in that you can label your thoughts with, like you'll kind of rack up, okay, which thinking errors does this have? One of them is just unhelpful thoughts. This thought is unhelpful. Like it's not trying to do anything good. And you think about it like constructive versus destructive criticism. There's a kind of criticism that is aimed at improving. And there's a kind of criticism which is just trash talking. The function of it is to get you, to weaken you and to get you vulnerable and to hurt you. You can just tell if you start to look at it when a thought or urge or something comes into your mind. What's this trying to do? What's the impact of this? And if it's useless, that's from hell. If it's useful, it might be from heaven. It's not like you can know for sure. But that is, again, something Swedenborg hundreds of years ago said was a key component of heaven is usefulness itself. Everything that comes out of heaven is meant to be useful. Actually, God, that's like how God's love manifests, is you're doing something that is useful. So hell, like it doesn't, the reason we call them mental illnesses is they don't do anything useful. They make it worse. Worrying a ton about something, even if there's something real going on in your life, doesn't help you. It doesn't help you. It's just trying to cause you pain, debilitate you, to lead you away from the life of heaven, which includes trust and being useful. So this stuff is very real and present to me because I've been using it. And I would say, again, don't think because let's say it really is true and there really is a spiritual cause behind the things we experience in our mind. I'm not saying that supersedes any of the medical and any of the treatments that are out there. I have had to lean on that stuff so much. And in the beginning of this bout of anxiety that I've been having, I couldn't even really get anything out of the spiritual stuff. Even the Swedenborg, it was too removed. I was too locked in. You have to treat it holistically. In the beginning, it was like the different kinds of therapy. I needed to reach out to people and tell people what I was feeling and what I was afraid of, and exercise. And I got on medication. I had been on it before, but I got off a while ago, and it's like, yeah, that didn't work. So I got back. You got to do that. You got to do that because it's not in conflict with the spiritual model that Swedenborg lays out. He's not saying that what we learn about the physical world isn't true, and what we learn about human nature isn't true. He's just saying, okay, here's the bigger explanation for why we deal with what we deal with. So I'm saying you can't just spiritualize. Look at me. I'm supposed to be the host of this YouTube channel about spiritual stuff, and I know all this spiritual stuff. Shouldn't I just be able to spiritual, or I believe in God, my way out of it? It's not always there for you. Because when what I would say is hell, or when your mind is really hitting you hard, it's too hard to hold on to some of these loftier concepts. You need stuff that's really battle-tested and proven, and that I think is these divine truths, but down on this immediate level with these different modalities and therapies and medicines and everything like that. But then I found just in my own progression here, initially, Swedenborg wasn't going to help me with this. Religion stuff, it was too much. It was too much. But I slowly, as I started to get better, I'm not all the way better, but I'm way better than I was. As I started to get better, then I did find the spiritual started to become really helpful, and ultimately, has become a huge and sort of the capstone of helping with it. So I think it's a missing piece. And what I would really wish someday that we get is a really good model of mental health where there's all the physical stuff that we know and all this good stuff, and there's this bigger, I know that things can get so dicey when you try to bring the idea of something spiritual into the stuff of the mind and mental health and all that. But if we could come up with a really good model that reinforces and honors what you know about the physical mind, that's why I'm excited about Swedenborg. I think it's there. And for me, I think throughout my life and my own struggles with all my mental health stuff, I'm mentally ill. I mean, I guess technically I've been diagnosed with anxiety and depression. I mean, that's why I got so interested in spiritual stuff, is I needed it to help me with this. Throughout my journey, the idea that there's heaven and hell in the mind, and you go toward heaven, and you don't have to listen to hell, and you don't have to own what hell tells you. That's been the life-saving idea, and I think there's a place for it in the way that we approach. I see it reflected in the way we approach mental health. So that's like, sounds like I have a sort of message wrapped up, but you know, I'm still like trying to figure it all out, and trying to navigate my own stuff, which is like, it's a lot of work and it's intense. And I know that you are going through your own stuff. Just like so many people are going through their stuff. So what I would hope is something in here was useful for you. One other thing is like I just remember this, the doing of useful things is a great tool to help you feel better. Like even now, like when I'm getting my anxiety, that's unsolvable, you're gonna get sick and die, How do you ever stop? When I'm like, all right, how can I do something that helps someone? How can I help my wife right now? How can I help my coworkers? How can I help that brings comfort. That brings comfort. And Swedenborg would say that's because it brings heaven close to you. Because in the doing of useful things, you're bringing angels actually like into you, and God is coming through you. But like going back to the Brain Lock book, what they say is the fourth step, the third step is like you've said, this is just an obsession. It's just my OCD. I don't need to believe it. It's just part of this medical condition that's not really part of who I am. And then you go and you don't listen to the fear. You don't do what it tells you. You go, and the author says, do something useful. Do something helpful and gratifying. Yeah, usefulness. In cognitive behavioral therapy, they'll say, all right, go from, start to live by your values. Figure out what your values are and go live by them. Do something useful. Don't listen to the fear. That's a huge one. And then like get in community. Like know that there are people out there to help you. There are people out there to help you. Try to like know that in whatever way you can. Reach out to them, because that's heaven. Heaven is like interconnected. Hell is like isolation. I know I was like almost wrapping up, but then I was like, oh, this might be useful. Hopefully those things are useful to you. How do you use religion or spirituality or whatever you want to call it to augment your own journey and struggles? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for listening. Hope this was helpful for you. Again, Off the Left Eye and all of you have been this great, wonderful thing in my life, and I'm really grateful for it, because part of what helped me get through this, or I'm still going through it or whatever, but is knowing like, okay, well, but I've been part of doing useful things, like the stuff that the team and I make helps people, is good, So I couldn't feel that sense of purpose without all of you. So come on, I'm not getting soft over here, but like, thank you for that. And just know we're in this together. We're so in this together. There really is one team, which is team happiness. I don't know why, hell is like trying to wreck that. You have to get pretty twisted up in your mind, but you do. But ultimately, there's just one team happiness. And in the end, we're gonna win. It's gonna be awesome. But in the meantime, you really can make a difference. You can reach out, be a lifeline for people in all kinds of ways. Doing goodness is real. It's awesome. Thanks, everybody.